hear how the thing that mattered the most to the Hydes, the one thing that was the most important to them, was that they had each other. And on that morning, they did have each other. But then, the father of the 4 children and the husband of Mrs. Hyde, the husband who had been married to the love of his life since 2000, the father who loved going to every one of his children's soccer games, loved going to all of their lacrosse games, and he loved telling them all about his time as the football captain of Petersburg High, tragically died in an accident. One of the pillars of the family died. And at the end of that day, they woke up, and despite the problems they had, despite that, yes, Frank Hyde did have a drinking problem, despite that, yes, he was dealing with some depression, and despite the fact that, yes, he did lose his job on that day, they had what mattered most to them, and that was they were all together as a family. They had each other. And then that night, they didn't. Georgia Hyde lost her husband, and Mary, Joe, Sarah, and Steve lost their father. No longer was Georgia going to have a husband, a partner, to watch their 4 children grow up together. And you will hear that no longer were the children going to have a father to tuck them in at night, to read stories to them, or to teach them how to drive. They watch them grow up. And what did they do? You will hear that they wanted to grieve. Georgia wanted to grieve about this terrible accident. But could she do so? No, because she had to raise 4 children. And is that a job for one person? No, it's a job for 2. And so what did she do? You will hear that she remembered that Frank and her had been planning for exactly this, an accident just like this. And they went to the insurance company who promised Frank, if anything happens to you, you will be okay, your family will be okay, and you won't have to worry about them. And they pay their premiums every month. You will hear how every month the insurance company collected $125. And was that money always on time? You bet it was. Every month the insurance company, you will hear, collected $125 and kept on collecting it. And then Georgia Hyde, you will hear at her greatest moment of need, her and her 4 children went to collect the money, asked the insurance company just once to give them money. And the insurance company said no. They told a widow and her 4 children, no, we will not give you the money that you were promised. And what we ask for you to do today is to give that widow, Georgia Hyde, and her 4 children, what the insurance company promised them. And allow them, even though nothing can replace what Frank meant to that family. Because it wasn't just about financial support, it was about being a husband and a father. Nothing can replace that, but they've already suffered that tragedy of losing him. And they don't want to have to suffer another of the insurance company not keeping a promise. Thank you.
Okay. The defendant, the insurance company, may call up first.
Thank you, Honor. Defense calls Mr. Ralph Sullivan to the stand.
Sullivan, will you raise your right hand, please? You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sullivan.
Good afternoon.
Could you please give us a brief introduction about yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Ralph Sauber. I'm from the area, 60 miles from here. And I worked with Frank at Philip Morris. And we've been friends for a long time.
How long have you worked with Mr. Frank Hyde?
About 15 years.
Were you also, outside of work, were you also friends?
Yeah, we're good. We were good buddies.
What were your impression of Mr. Frank in 2011 when he was tasked up for promotion?
I think he was upset. I mean, the way he viewed it, he'd been working at the company for a while, and then all of a sudden, some guy with a college degree comes in and gets the job. But, you know, he got over it.
Was there any change in say, the mood or how he acted at work before and after the passing up of the promotion?
I think before he'd been kind of a go-getter because he thought he could get promoted. After the promotion, I think he realized that there was a ceiling there, you know, the ceiling of not having that degree. And so he started getting a little more upset and, you know, he'd have a couple beers at lunchtime.
And you guys would frequently go drink after work?
Yeah, went out for a couple beers.
He was a big person, wasn't he? Could you tell the jury about his physical appearance?
Sure. He was about 6'3", I'd say around 220, 230. Big guy, I don't know, a lot of facial hair.
And when you went out to go drink with him, how many drinks did you guys have? Was he usually drunk at the end of the day?
Before?
After the promotion incident?
After the promotion incident. We went out and we drank, but I don't think he ever really got too drunk. I mean, he's a big guy, so.
Since he was passed up for the promotion,
Yeah.
did he say anything to you that was a bit of alarming for you as a friend?
I remember afterwards he'd said, well, I think he'd just been very upset. You know, he just was very, very angry that, you know, he was passed up.
Maybe depressed also?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but he seems sad, yeah.
Did he ever say to you something about the insurance plan that he had?
Objection, waiting.
No, overruled.
Yeah, I remember him saying that he had taken out an insurance policy just in case anything ever happened to him. I mean, his wife didn't work and he wanted to make sure his children were taken care of.
And was he kind of, at the time, worried about his financial situation also?
Yeah, I mean, I remember him mentioning, you know, he had bills to pay and, you know, being the only parent who works at a kind of a low income job, he was worried about it. I mean, we all were. I'm a parent too and I was worried about it.
Before he died on October 2015, did he also talk about his changes to the insurance plan?
Yeah, I mean, he'd actually just, Georgia, his wife, was gonna have kids, twins. So, you know, big increase in the family, you're going from 2 to 4 kids. And so he doubled his insurance policy. I think he went from $250 to $500.
And let's talk about the night night of the car crash. Anything happened at the work earlier in the day?
Yeah, it was kind of upsetting. We both go to the office to get our paychecks. I get mine, Frank gets his, and then he opens the envelope and he just goes silent. And I was, you know, I look over kind of curious, you know, okay, did you not get as much as you were expecting? It's a set thing. Then he just slowly pulls out this pink slip, and you know, we all know what that means.
Just to be clear, could you tell us what that meant for Mr.
Yeah.
Black?
So, you know, if you get the pink slip, that means, you know, you're going to be fired. You're being let go. And that's what happened. I told him, you know, in 2 weeks, you're not going to have a job because you've been drinking during work, and we think it's affecting your performance.
Did he tell you anything after he getting the pink slip? I'm sure he must have been quite sad.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him just staring at it for a little bit, and just, I think neither of us really knew what to say. He just said, you know, thinking about it financially, you know, I'm worth more dead now than alive, and he wasn't going to have a paycheck, so it kind of made sense.
Did he share with you any personal incidents that he had before, about 5 years ago?
Yeah, so he's been talking about how, you know, he was getting annoyed at the company and how, you know, that kind of stuff. And he's been talking about, after he was passed up for the promotion, there had been this incident where he had taken a lot of Valium. And there was, you know, it's a drug. And he said he'd taken a lot of it and almost died.
And did you guys go anywhere after work?
Yeah, I mean, he was upset. I could understand that, and I figured, we'll have some beers to take your mind off of it, talk, work it out of your system before you actually see the wife and kids.
How long did you guys drink that night?
I mean, Frank was, he was justifiably upset, and so we got there. We both have a number of beers, and probably after around 5 or 6 beers, I lose count of how many Frank's having, and we continued drinking until about 11:30.
And he left the bar then?
Yeah, he has a few shots of whiskey, or several shots of whiskey, several beers, and then says, no point in talking about it anymore, and he just got in the car and left.
And that was the last time you saw him alive?
Yeah.
Okay, no further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. So, Mr. Stavron, thank you for being with us today.
No problem.
And so you worked with a coworker with Frank Hyatt at Philip Morris.
Yeah.
And after he did the promotion, did he still work at Philip Morris?
Yeah, it sucks, but this is our life. We have to deal with people with college degrees coming in and taking stuff from us all the time. So we just power through it.
So he still did his job and continued his life just as before.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. He has to provide for his family.
And working at Philip Morris long term for the rest of his career, that wasn't what he wanted to do for the rest of his career.
No. Frank was a go-getter. He had other dreams. He was thinking about joining the service. Running for office. Philip Morris was the beginning. It wasn't the end.
Right. So when he got fired, he was planning to leave Philip Morris eventually.
I think so. Yeah.
And so now let's transition and talk about a few of the things that Frank may have said that day.
Sure.
So Frank, who was angry that day?
Frank was.
Yeah, Frank was really angry.
Yeah.
And when he was angry, did he ever say anything that was just off like the top of his head, might not have meant it?
Yeah. I mean, I think he was just blowing off steam. It sucked. I mean, I thought it sucked. He thought it sucked, and the whole point is, say whatever you need to get it off your chest, and then, you're better to see the wife and kids.
Right. And when he said something about being a lot of money or not that much money alive because he just got fired, he was talking about finances, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think he was doing the math in his head, thinking, here's how much I can make in a different kind of job, and here's how much the insurance policy's worth. But I mean, he wasn't talking about the effect it was going to have on his family or personally or anything.
How much he meant to his family and how much they meant to him, how much he loved them, that never came up in conversation, did it?
No.
And when he talked about some incident, I think it was 5 years ago in the past, about this Valiant incident,
Yeah.
he talked about it in the past, right?
Yeah.
Using past tense, stuff like that.
Yeah, he was talking about it 5 years ago.
All right, so 5 years ago, it's in the past.
Yeah.
And he never talked about wanting to do anything similar on this day.
No, he didn't mention any plans, no.
Okay, and now let's talk a little bit more about what happened that night at the bar.
Sure.
And so you both get to the bar, and your goal is to cheer him up and have some drinks.
Yeah.
And how many drinks do you have?
Probably had 5 or 6.
And what kind of drinks were they?
I was just drinking beer.
And what kind of drinks did Frank initially have with you?
Initially, I think he was just having beer too.
And five or six about the same?
No, actually, I mean, he had more. I lost track at 5 or 6, but he was going further.
And you say you have maybe an average or maybe even a little above average tolerance level for alcohol?
I do, yeah.
And Frank, he's a big guy, so understandably, his might be a little higher.
Yeah.
And so you had to stop around 5 or 6 because you were already feeling something tipsy, drunk.
Yeah.
But Frank wasn't feeling drunk at 5 or 6.
I don't think so. I mean, he kept going.
So he had to go more.
Yeah.
So he wasn't feeling drunk and he drank more.
Yes.
And he had more than 5 or 6 beers when you only had 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And then more than that, he drinks some more.
Yeah, he did.
And what kind of drinks did he have?
So he had the boilerplates, which is basically shot of whiskey, you drop it in a beer, and then you drink both. I'd say he had several of those. I mean, by that point, I was pretty tipsy. I wasn't keeping track, but he definitely had several.
And how close together did he drink those several Boilermakers?
Well, you know, Frank's a champ, so he was pounding those. I'd say he started at around 11, and within a few minutes, he'd blown through several of them.
And a normal guy like you wouldn't even think about just taking one of those after you're only 5 or 6 beers.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the time, you know, if it's been, you know, a long time, then maybe I'll take one, but not the way he was drinking them.
But several, like 5 or 6 in a couple minutes?
No way.
And what time was this where he drank all those 5 or 6 Boilermakers in a few minutes?
Around 11.
And that was shortly before he left the bar and got into his car, correct?
Yeah, I think around 11:30 he got into his car.
Right. And it was dark outside when he got into his car?
Yeah, around 11:30 at night.
And the last thing I want to ask you about is about him getting into his car and leaving.
Sure.
So did he say anything to you when he was leaving?
I think he just said, you know, say goodbye to the boys for me.
And he had been fired, correct?
Yeah.
Did he tell you to say goodbye to anyone else?
No.
Did he say goodbye to you?
No.
Did he say goodbye to, did he tell you to say goodbye to Georgia Hyde, his wife?
No.
Did he tell you to say goodbye to Mary, his 13-year-old daughter?
No, I think he just knew he wasn't going to be working at the factory again, so.
And he didn't tell you to say goodbye to Joe, his 11-year-old son?
No.
He didn't tell you to say goodbye to Sarah, his 1.5-month-old, one of his twins?
No.
He didn't tell you to say goodbye to Steve?
No.
And did his phone ring while he was saying goodbye to the fellas? He told you to say goodbye to his fellas, and his phone rang?
Yeah.
And he didn't answer it?
No.
And if he wanted to say goodbye to the person on that phone, he could have answered it?
Yeah.
And he chose not to answer it or say goodbye to anyone else?
No, he just got into his car and drove away.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Anything further to this?
Moving on.
You're excused. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, can we call Officer Fryman to the stand?
Officer, would you raise your right hand? Swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning, Officer Fryman. My name is Ryan Auerskamp. I've been introduced by Mr. King, my co-counsel. And could you please state your name and your position for the benefit of the court?
My name is Officer Hercules Fryman. I'm a state trooper with the Virginia State Police.
Thank you. And how long have you been an officer with the state police?
For 20 years, I was a patrol officer for many years, and as you can tell by my facial hair, I'm now under her.
And how long, or how many, in that time, how many investigations into car accidents have you done?
Innumerable. Well, as a patrol officer, maybe average once a week. I believe I spent 17 years as a patrol officer, so a great one.
So once a week, 20 years, roughly thousands. Thousands of accidents. And have you seen any accidents that have involved allegations of suicide?
Allegations? Yes, I believe I have.
And you've been able to rule that those ones were not suicide?
In almost every case, in all but one case, yes.
And is this the first case that you've decided that this crash was an accident, or was a suicide?
Yes, sir.
And let's talk a little bit about the moment when you arrived at the scene of the crash and how you got there. So could you tell the court a little bit about that night and how you know, what led you to go and investigate this?
Sure. I was on patrol that night in my state police cruiser on Highway 95. I received a call on the radio from the barracks and discovered that there was a truck driver who, on his radio, on his CB radio, made a call and let the barracks know that there had been an accident along 95. I was the nearest on Route 95, and so I turned on the lights on my cruiser, and I hurried to the location. When I got there, I found that there was a car that had gone over the berm and off the road, and then a good distance through a lightly wooded area until it ran into a big oak tree. What I did first, of course, was I went and checked on the driver of the vehicle. I found that he was deceased by checking his pulse and also, of course, just doing a visual inspection. And then when I discovered that he was deceased, I began my investigation.
Thank you. Can you tell us about the conditions that night, of the roads, of the weather, traffic?
It was October 1st, so it was fall, but it was pretty warm. I was still in my short sleeve summer uniform. Probably about 65, 70 degrees. There was very little cloud cover, as I recall. Certainly no precipitation of any kind. It was very clear.
And you said there was a tree. How big was that tree that you ran into?
Very, very big. I'd say the trunk was, I don't know, 5 feet across. It was a big, big old tree. A very unusually large tree. The kind you would have made the mast of an old-time sailing ship out of.
And was the car's headlights on when it hit the tree?
The front end of the car was totally destroyed. It would be impossible.
And if those headlights had been on, would the driver have been able to see the tree at night?
Oh, absolutely. It's a great big tree.
I want to, for the benefit of the court, have you draw on the board, kind of sketch out the layout of the roads and where you saw the detective. I think there's a piece of chalk at the very top of this one.
Okay, there's some here. I've been in a court with so much chalk. So what would you like to see, sir?
Just the layout of the road, any turns or curves, where you saw the car go off the road, or where, the tracks of the car going off the road, any markings you identified, and any distances, that would be helpful.
Sure. So Route 95 runs generally north-south. So it comes up this way, but this section of it is unusual because it makes a big curve around a little hillside that's up here, like this, and then turns back up that way again. So it looks a little bit like that. The first thing I saw was the car against the tree. And that would have been over here. After some other emergency vehicles started to arrive, I began to inspect the area more generally. The first thing I found were rubber marks on the road right here. And what I noticed about those was I stood at the end of them, right between them, and looked straight ahead, right down, like you're looking down some railroad tracks. And right there, straight in the distance, was that tree. So these lined up perfectly, straight ahead, down the road, and through the brush that was here, straight to the tree, where the car ended up. So I figured that these tracks were made by the car as it accelerated down the road toward the tree. They were about 25 yards, about 75 feet long. Then there was another 25 yards after the tracks end to here, where the vehicle left the berm and went into the woods. There was 40 yards here. That's not exactly the scale, but you get the idea. What I concluded based on this requires a little bit more information. The car was a Pontiac Firebird, 1983. It's a rear-wheel drive car with a ton of torque, which means that it can really lay down a line of rubber right here if it takes off from a low speed. So I concluded that the car had come around, or possibly was just sitting here. I don't really know where it came from. But the car had started from here, accelerated, top acceleration, laid down this rubber, took off over the berm, straight ahead, no deviations from the beginning, straight to the tree.
And when you saw, what else did you do that night to decide what the cause of this crash was, whether it was intentional suicide or an accident? How did you rule out any other causes?
Well, of course, we keep a checklist that will that allows us to go down and consider other common causes of road fatalities. One of those, for instance, is that some sort of obstruction appears in the road. A deer, a bear, another car, something like that. Now, what happens in those cases, generally, if you can see the track that the car has made, it comes along, and then here's your deer. Swings off to the side one way or the other. We didn't see that. Straight line, all the way through. From a stop or very low speed, pointed directly at this great big oak tree, big acceleration, straight through to the tree. That's not consistent with suddenly seeing some kind of obstruction. Another thing that I considered was falling asleep at the wheel. But here's a thing that tends to happen. If you can imagine, sitting in your car, you fall asleep. You see what happened with my foot there? It tends to pull back. You don't see an acceleration like this with falling asleep. Sometimes we see distracted driving, that sort of thing. It also tends to come with a letting up on the accelerator. And it also tends to come with a drift off to one side or another, not straight ahead like this one. So that's how I came to the conclusion this was most likely a suicide.
And did you have any knowledge that he was drunk before you came to the conclusion that this was suicide?
Well, when I came to my preliminary conclusion at the scene, no, I did not know that. I found that out later from the medical, the coroner's report.
And how did you rule out that this was an accident caused by drunk driving?
In the same way, because what causes a drunk driving accident generally? It tends to be the same kind of thing, distracted driving, falling asleep. It's really just a subset of those two kinds of problems. So I did not consider this sudden acceleration, straight ahead, directly toward an obstacle, to be consistent with what I have seen of drunk driving fatalities.
Would you expect to see in a drunk driving case somebody who had come to a stop on a road and then proceeded to continue on and go off the road?
That is something I've never seen.
Other possibilities, he was also when you came to the car, did you find his phone?
I did eventually find his phone. It was loose in the passenger compartment of the car. I believe that I eventually found it in the back seat. But of course, the car was in very bad shape from hitting a tree, so I don't know where it began. It was ringing at the time. That's how I found it.
What else did you see with the phone? Did you go through the log?
I took a look in the phone, and I discovered that there had been a large number of calls from what was marked in the phone as home. I could tell that those calls had not been answered, and the way that I could tell that was that the phone split calls between incoming, outgoing, and missed. And all of these were listed as missed calls.
And how did you conclude that he had not been looking at his phone at the time he went off the road?
It's entirely possible that he was looking at his phone at the time he went off the road. But as a cause, it simply doesn't fit. The sudden acceleration, imagine this if you will. You're in your car, your phone rings, you look down at it. Do you use that moment to also step on your accelerator? It's not very consistent.
Is there any possibility that those marks could be deemed as brake marks, that he was trying to stop himself rather than accelerate?
I don't think so if they were made by his car. And let me tell you the reason why. Imagine they're brake marks. First of all, one thing you tend to see with brake marks, especially in a rear-wheel drive car, is you have a little bit of fishtailing. We didn't see them. They were together. But, more importantly, imagine how they get here if they're brake marks from Mr. Hyde's vehicle. He comes around here, brakes, then starts going again and manages to get himself up to 50 to 60 miles per hour by the time he leaves the berm. There's only 25 yards there. It just doesn't seem possible, especially without leaving any more marks.
And if the, let's consider another possibility. If he were drunk, which there's evidence that he was above the legal limit, would you expect that there's a possibility that he had hit the gas as an accident rather than hitting the brake, which he was intending to hit and cause those marks?
It's possible, but again, it's difficult to imagine because he would have had to have that gas down for a pretty long time as he came across here, and then not been able to, for whatever reason, to get to the brake again. It's a fast car. Well, let me say more specifically, it's a car with a lot of acceleration. You're not going to not notice you're leaving on gas no matter how fast you are.
And was there any evidence that he had moved at all to the left or to the right as he was going through that brush, or was it a straight shot?
Not a bit. And in fact, you could stand there and you could see all the brush that he laid down standing right as straight as you can want on either side.
Let's talk a little bit about your knowledge of Mr. Hyde's mindset that night. Did you know anything about his mental state at the time of this crash?
Not a thing except what I could conclude from the physical evidence.
At the time you concluded this was a suicide, you knew nothing about any depression, any past history of suicide attempts?
Until I was deposed in this case, I knew nothing about that.
So, just with physical evidence, you were able to conclude this was a suicide?
Yes, sir.
No further questions. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Freeman. I would like to ask you that you saw the car under the tree, right?
Yes, smashed into the tree, yes.
Okay. And the distance between the tree and the road is 40 yards, right?
Yes, sir.
And you say that the acceleration of the car is about 20 yards, right?
25.
25 yards. It was dark at time?
Yes, sir.
It's a wood area, right?
Yes, sir.
Many trees around it,
Yes, yes, sir.
and many bushes on this area.
Yes, it was trees and low bushes, yes, sir.
And I would like to ask you that you said that the speed is about 50 to 60 miles per hour.
That was my conclusion. That is, of course, that's an approximation, but yes, that was my conclusion.
Okay, so we can do a small calculation here. Do you agree with me that the distance of acceleration is 25 yards, right? And the speed is about 50 to 60 miles per hour. I assume that.
Well, sir, if I could correct you, that was the time he left the berm. So you have the period of acceleration where he's laying down
Yeah, to the tree.
rubber
Yeah.
at the beginning, and then you have a second period where he is continuing to accelerate, but because he's accelerating from a faster speed to a faster speed rather than from a slow or stop speed, he's not laying rubber down anymore. So it's 50 yards of the acceleration.
50-yard acceleration.
Yes,
Okay. In the speed of 50 to 60 miles per hour.
that's correct.
And we can do the calculation that 50 miles per hour can be 88,000 yards. And if we divide into the hour, do you agree with me that is about 25 yards per second? Do you agree then?
I'm sorry, so you're asking me, would he have covered this in 2 seconds if he had started going 60 miles per hour? I agree with that.
Okay. So like the process of starting into hitting the tree only occur from your calculation in 1 to 2 seconds, right?
Oh, no, sir, because that calculation only works if he's already at that speed at the beginning, you see? If you're moving at 60 miles per hour, you go 25 yards per second, right?
Yeah.
But he was not moving at 60 miles per hour until he finished his acceleration. So he was accelerating,
Yeah.
and then as he went through the brush and it slowed down, his tires couldn't get purchased on the ground anymore in the same way. He was decelerating. So it would have taken longer. I don't know exactly how long.
So you
That's a complicated piece of math, obviously.
and you didn't calculate it
No, sir.
exactly.
No, sir, I did
Okay,
not.
you didn't calculate it. And I would like to ask you that before this hitting, you have never done any cases that you mark as a suicide, right?
Oh, no, sir. I've never done any traffic cases. No.
Okay. I would like to ask you that, so before that concerning traffic case, you only deal with the cases that you mark as accident, right?
For traffic cases.
Traffic case.
As accident or caused by some sort of negligence, but yes, accident.
And I would like to ask you that the alcoholic percentage in the blood of the disease is about 1.3%. Is that right?
That's what I learned from the coroner's report, yes, sir.
Okay. And the legal standard of threshold is 0.08%. Is that right?
That's correct.
So, like, he is presumed by law as drunk. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That he was drunk. I would like to ask you that, taking all the consideration here, it was dark, many trees around, not just one tree, and bushes. Even for a unconscious driver, they can get confused and they can get lost, right?
Well, are you asking me, can drivers get lost? Yes, yes, sir, drivers can get lost.
Yeah. But in this case, he was presumed as drunk, right?
Yes, sir.
And I would like to ask you that when he was drunk, there is a possibility that he may make mistake between the brake and the accelerator. Is that right?
A possibility? Yes, sir. Yes, there's a possibility.
Okay. And I would like to ask you that, is that the policy of your station is that you can't voluntarily disclose your conclusion on the cause of this hitting? Is that correct?
Well, yes, sir. It is our policy not to disclose our investigations, except in this case under subpoena. Obviously, we would, and in fact, we did.
So only because of the subpoena, or only because you are summoned by the court, that is the time that you can disclose such information. Is that right?
That is the policy of our state police barracks. Yes, sir.
So that without the summon of the court, you are not allowed to disclose it in public, or you can use it as an evidence in your work toward the public. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
Anything further? No. And this witness is excused.
Your Honor, I'm due to appear in criminal
Yes.
court.
Thank you, officer. We appreciate your testimony. Want to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Defense would like to call Mr. Greg Gilchrist.
Young, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Your Honor, may the defense and plaintiff stipulate submission into evidence the insurance contract between Mr. Frank Hyde and the company?
I believe you have a sample, is that right?
Yes, yes,
A
sir.
sample, of course you can.
Thank you. On the request of the Plaintiffs' Counsel, may I erase the word?
Yes, you may.
Good afternoon, Mr. Young.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for testifying for us today. I know you're a busy person. We'll make this very quick. For the members of our jury, could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Greg Young. I'm 28 years old. I live here in Virginia, and I sell insurance for a beneficial insurance company.
How long have you been working for the insurance company?
About 6 years.
What about your work record? Like how many insurance policies you sold, things like that?
Yes, I sell insurance policies.
Have you sold a lot?
Yeah, a fair amount.
About, could you give us a number?
Maybe 60 or 70 when I was with the company.
Over your 5, 6 years of employment with the insurance company, have you ever had to pay out the claims?
Personally, I've never paid out claims, but yes, our company has paid out many claims.
Let's talk about your interactions with Mr. Frank Hyde. Did you sell Mr. Hyde any insurance policy?
Yes, I did.
What did you sell him?
I sold him a $250,000 life insurance policy in 2014.
Did you sell him anything else? Or another one?
I didn't sell him another one, but I did increase his coverage. About a year later, he came to me and told me that his wife had just had twins and that he would like his coverage doubled to $500,000. And that was August of 2015, I believe.
And that increase for the life insurance, and you delivered it to, did you personally deliver it to Mr. Frank Hyde?
I did, not that same day that he requested it. We reviewed his medical records and his information before approving the increase, and I did personally deliver the policy to him once it had been approved about a month later.
Do you remember when the date of you delivering the policy to him?
I believe the policy became effective, the increased policy, in mid-September, and I delivered it to him the 1st of October in 2015.
Was it, the delivery actually took place on September 30th, wasn't it?
It might have been, yeah.
Yes. Now, may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Handing to you a document. Do you recognize what this is?
Yes, I do.
Could you please tell the members of the jury what it is?
This is a contract for life insurance coverage.
And with whom?
Looks like this is Frank Hyde's policy.
How complicated is that life insurance policy?
So I imagine there might be some terms that people unfamiliar with the business wouldn't understand, but generally it's fairly straightforward, and you always make sure and walk through it with people.
How many pages is that insurance policy?
Just one page.
One page. Are there any exceptions for the coverage in the policy?
Yes, in this particular policy, there is an exception.
What is the exception?
But the policy is void if the policyholder dies by their own hand, by committing suicide.
When you signed the contract, when you signed the policy with Mr. Frank Hyde, did he understand what that exception meant?
We did review each clause of the policy before signing.
So you went over that exception with Mr. Frank Hyde
Correct.
in person.
Yes.
Did Mr. Frank pay all the premiums on time?
Yes, I believe it.
And now that Ms. Georgia Hyde has filed a claim on the insurance company to be paid, is there a reason that you're denying?
Yes, we determined that his death was the result of suicide.
Is there any other reason that you're denying the payment?
No other,
How did you find out that Mr. Frank Hyde committed suicide?
our company investigated, once we had determined, or been notified rather, that Mr. Hyde had been killed. We performed investigations, we looked at police reports, and then our company has investigators that they send out to look into these things, and after we looked into it, we ultimately reached that conclusion.
And no further questions at this time.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Young.
Good afternoon.
You work for a beneficial insurance company, correct?
Correct.
And you must be pretty good because that's a large company.
I do my best, yeah.
And they have offices nationwide.
Correct.
So millions of individuals are served with the insurance company.
Yeah, I believe so.
And one of those individuals is Frank Hyde.
Correct.
And he was paying $125 monthly premiums.
Yes, you was.
And you allowed Frank to double his premiums. And double the coverage.
Yes, I did allow, or rather, our company saw that he was eligible for that increase he requested.
And now $125 a month, that's about $1,500 a year.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And frankly, all those payments on time.
Yes, in the year that he had the contract, I believe he was on time.
Every month, the premium money came in on the first of the month like the contract asked to do, correct?
The payments were on time.
And that contract, he made clear to him that if he committed suicide, his wife would not get the money.
I went over all the clauses in the contract before he signed.
And when you handed it to him on September 30th, you said, if something happens to you, your family will have nothing to worry about.
I might have said something to that effect.
That you said, you told him his family would have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I might have said that.
And did you take a deposition for this trial earlier?
Yeah, yeah.
Would it help you to refresh if you could see the deposition?
Sure, yeah.
And did you tell him his family would have nothing to worry about?
Yeah, looks like I did say something like that.
Would you agree your exact words were, your family will have nothing to worry about?
Yeah,
Ask an answer?
Overall?
I do recall saying that in my deposition.
And if he had lived to an expected lifespan, that $1,500 a year, $125 a month, which had always been paid on time, that would have kept coming in year after year, month after month.
I have no idea what would have happened.
But you would have collected the money if he still gave it to you, correct?
As long as he had a policy, I would collect it.
You have collected that money.
Sure.
And Frank then died in a tragic accident, correct?
Frank did die.
And his widow, Georgia Hyde, the beneficiary, came to collect on that policy.
Yes, that's correct.
And you told her no.
Yes, after reviewing the case.
And the investigators, the insurance company's own investigators, did the investigation.
Yes.
And who was the one that got to keep the money if the investigators, the insurance company investigators, found that it was a suicide?
The insurance company.
All right, no further questions.
Anything further of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you're excused. Do you have another witness?
No.
No, we're done.
So the defense rests in this case?
Yes, sir.
Let's assume that whatever motions you would make, if you may, I'll take them under advisement. Plaintiffs, you're entitled to call your first witness.
Your
Your Honor, I would like to call Dr. Liu.
Go do it. Dr. Liu, would you raise your right hand, please? You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Proceed.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sim Liu. May you tell the jury your full name?
My name is Dr. Sid Liu.
And can you tell the jury about your educational background?
I received my medical degree from the University of Virginia. I did my residency at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville Hospital. In about 2005, after completing my residency, I moved to Petersburg and began practicing family medicine.
What is your occupation?
I am a general physician. I specialize in family medicine.
Beside your field of the physician, do you practice other branch?
No,
Only physician, right?
I'm only a physician.
And do you know about the Heist family?
I do. Since coming to Petersburg, I have been the Heist family's doctor for all members of the family.
So what was your last time seeing the Heist family?
The last time I saw Frank Hyde would be sometime around 2013.
And what did you say to him?
Frank came to see me about he was distraught from an earlier incident that happened to him where he was passed up for a promotion about a year earlier. And there was a time when he was, after being passed over for that promotion at work, Frank got drunk one night, took an entire bottle of Valium because he was so depressed, so he came to see me about that.
And what was your reaction toward his story?
I pressed Frank. I wanted to know why he had taken the Valium.
And what did he say to him afterward?
Could you repeat?
Yeah, I mean, after you pressed him, what did he say to you afterward? So can you tell me the statement?
I remember the statement vividly because it was so impressionable. Frank said something to the effect that the reason he took the Valium is he just wanted to escape. He just wanted to escape life. And so I followed up, did you take the Valium to kill yourself? And Frank emphatically got angry when I suggested that, and emphatically denied it. He said, I'm a man, I wouldn't do that, I have a wife and kids at home.
And do you know that whether Frank drank at that time?
Frank told me that he drank more often after the Valium incident.
And did you report the conversation between you and Frank?
On that, in my medical files, I do not.
So why didn't you do that?
Well, I'm a general physician. My area is family medicine. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I don't have appointments where a patient comes in with disorders and I put down their fever.
So like for any conversation without your scope of work, you will not report the conversation, right?
It would depend, but if it was outside my scope, and in this particular instance, Frank had asked me specifically not to, about his concerns about having a record where he had expressed that he was upset and sad and depressed. Because Frank had he told me he had other ambitions. He was thinking about running for office, joining the service, seeking a insurance policy. So I told him ahead of time I wouldn't put it in the record.
Thank you very much. I have no other question.
Cross-examination?
Yes, please.
Dr. Liu.
Good morning.
I'd like to ask just a few questions, first starting with the Valium incident that you've just been discussing. Would that be okay? So you heard when Frank Hyde came into your office that he had been denied a promotion, went home and took a bottle of Valium as well as liquor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you know that overdosing, as a doctor, that overdosing on Valium combined with liquor is a way of committing suicide, correct?
It would be a method.
A method. So you asked him, knowing that, you asked him if he had taken his life because you suspected it, correct?
Yes.
And he got mad and said, I'll quote his specific words, "What kind of man do you think I am? I would not kill myself with my wife and kids in the house." You heard that, correct?
Yes.
And you are aware that at the time of his death, the death did not occur in the house, correct?
Yes.
I also want to ask you some questions about the depression and hopelessness that that Mr. Hyde felt in this case. Is that okay? So he came into your office and stated that since the incident of attempting to commit suicide through Valium, he was feeling more depressed and drinking more, correct?
Correct.
He also said that since the incident, he no longer felt like himself, correct?
Correct.
And this was one year after the incident, correct?
Approximately, yes.
And this had been going on for that entire time, correct?
Correct.
And that he told you that he felt like a failure, correct?
He did.
And that he saw little hope,
He said that.
and he was worried about his ability to take care of himself and his family,
Yes.
and that he was increasingly becoming more and more depressed.
He was.
And for these reasons, you diagnosed him as having severe depression.
I recommend, yes, that was my initial priority.
And at this stage, would you say that Mr. Hyde was resistant to help?
Seems like a fair characterization.
You encouraged him to take medication, Prozac,
I did.
and you were aware that Mrs. Hyde was also encouraging him to take those medications, correct?
I know Mrs. Hyde had wished for Frank to see me about treatment. I don't know specific medication. She was concerned.
She called you on the phone,
She did.
and she voiced concern about Frank.
Yes.
2 years, I believe, after the incident, correct?
I believe I got a call from Ms. Hyde approximately a year after I first saw her.
And she said that he had been getting worse and worse and worse.
She did.
And she was hoping that he would see you.
Yes.
Did you ever attempt to meet with him at that point?
I had an open door policy.
And he never came through your door again?
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Anything further, this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You have regret.
And Dr. Lui, I would like to ask you more questions about that. So you know that the use of Valium with overdose pain is just a reason of to commit the suicide, right?
It's just a way.
Just a way. Have you ever seen any accident with using overdose the Valium?
I have. I have.
And can you describe how much that we can consider as an overdose?
Well, it would depend on the individual. Valium's a strong drug, but I would say more than 6 a day could constitute an overdose.
Okay, and my one last question is that, right, you told us that you're a physician, and what part of your job that you concerned with the depression patient? Yes, my question is that, as a physician, in which circumstances that you deal with the depression patient?
If a patient comes to me and describes
describe symptoms that I recognize associated with depression, I would recommend a treatment.
Okay, I have no more questions, thank you.
Anything further?
No, no.
Okay, Dr. Lee, you're excused. Do you have another witness?
Yes, Your Honor, we want to call Georgia High. May you please state your name for the jury?
Sure. My name is Mrs. Georgia High.
And how do you know Frank?
He was my husband.
And when did you get married?
We got married almost 20 years ago, around 2000.
And do you have a family?
Yes, we have a pretty large family now. We recently added 2 twins to our family, but we have 4 children total.
And what's important to your family? What's the most important thing to your family?
The most important thing was always that we had each other, that our children had a father, a mother, that I had a husband and children as well.
And was that important to Frank as well?
Definitely. Frank loved our children almost more than I did.
And how did he show his love for his children?
Well, he took them to, he attended all their lacrosse games and talked to them about his football career as a high school player at Petersburg High, and he did everything a good father would do for his kids.
Right. And so, not for the twins who are recently born, but for the older children, did he tuck them in at night when they were growing up? Did he read stories to them? How did he interact with them on a daily basis?
Yeah, he loved them. He did everything for them. Mary and Joe are crazy about their father, and it's been really hard for me and for them to deal with the fact that he's no longer with us anymore.
And for the twins, Sarah and Steve, they're still infants.
Yes, they were born in 2015, so they're about a year and a half now.
And what was Frank's reaction when the family grew, double in size from 2 to 4 children?
His first thought was to raise our life insurance policy because he was worried that in case something happened to him, that the family wouldn't be able to survive.
And did he love them? How did he feel towards them?
He absolutely loved our new twins. He was ecstatic about them. Kind of told everybody that he met that we had 2 twins.
And was he, sort of maybe the stereotypical type male figure where, the wife changes the diapers and does all that, or did he actually take part in the caregiving? What was his role in that?
He was the primary breadwinner, so he made all the money for us, but he loved to do as much as he could with the children wherever he could. It wasn't just going to work, coming home. It was going to work, coming back, and taking care of the kids as much as he could during his off hours as well.
And we've heard some earlier testimony that he did deal with some depression, but when he was around his kids, did he have that same demeanor, same depression, or what was he like around his kids?
He was never sad around his kids, and they were a large motivation for him to live life and to support his family and help his kids grow. And he specifically wanted to make sure that all of our children could go to college.
And Frank was ambitious, correct?
Yeah, he would do whatever he could to make sure that we saved enough money to take our kids to college, which was probably the most important thing to him.
And so maybe earlier on, maybe he had different ambitions, but he changed them to be focused on the kids.
Before we had children, before we had Mary and Joe and Sarah and Steve, he had different dreams, but he sort of changed into being a father as the primary guidebook of his life, I think. And he really loved our children.
All right, and so now we're going to talk about some of the past events that we've already heard about earlier in this trial. We've heard a lot about this Valium incident and about how Frank got passed over for a promotion. Frank was depressed during that time, but was he drinking? What was he like?
So I think it was around 5 years ago that he was passed up for a promotion at his work, Philip Morris. There was a college graduate who got the stock manager job instead of him, despite the fact that he worked there for many, many years and was a great employee. He took it hard, and it made sense to me that he would be upset about that. He really wanted to make sure that he could provide for his growing family, and then now we have 4 children, and getting a raise would have been really great for him.
And so he was understandably sad about that.
Yes, definitely.
And, you know, he did some drinking and then he took what is, I think, an antidepressant, Valium.
Yeah, so the night that he learned that he had not gotten the promotion, he came home after drinking, and it was really unusual for him because prior to that, he had always come home on time, tuck his kids in, and to eat dinner with us and to be with his family. And that night, he came home after drinking, and he eventually went up to bed, and I found him after he had taken some Valium.
But then after that, it was pretty much the same as far as he came home for dinner with the kids, and then he continued doing his job and worked at his job to try and do better. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, he wasn't happy being at Philip Morris anymore, but he always came home and was happy to see the kids to make sure that, to see the fruit of his efforts pretty much. He was working really hard and it was kind of paying off for him. He could take care of his kids and feed them.
And you say he wasn't happy being at Philip Morris anymore. So after that experience, did he have new goals, new ambitions?
He briefly mentioned his plans that he wanted to open a sports bar in Petersburg. He was always a big sports guy. He played football in high school.
And so you would, I apologize. And so you would say that he used his tough time and then he grew from it, got new ambitions so that he could.
Sustained.
And so how did he cope with this horrible experience of being passed up for this promotion he deserved? How did he cope with it in the future after that?
He was still pretty sad while he was at Philip Morris, but he had a plan for how he wanted to take his family in the future to provide for them better.
And that incident was in the past, correct?
Yeah.
And how long ago again was it?
He was passed up for the promotion 5 years ago.
5 years. And so now let's talk a little bit about what happened on October 1st, the date of the tragic accident. That morning, did you have the most important thing to your family? Did you have each other?
Yeah, he was happy that day as usual. He woke the kids up for school and then he left for work after all the breakfast together.
And later that night, things changed, correct?
Yeah, so he never came home that night. It was abnormal for him because he usually called after he got off work and tell me that he was coming home to see the kids and eat dinner with us. And that night I called him every 15, 20 minutes to see if he was okay because he wasn't answering his phone.
And how was your reactions each time you called him and he didn't answer the phone?
Well, I got more and more worried. I started calling more frequently and more as I could because I really wanted to see where he was and I wanted to make sure that he was okay.
And then you got that phone call, correct?
Yeah.
And who called you?
I got a call from Frank's work friend. He worked with Mr. Morris. His name is Ralph Salman. And he told me that he had heard on the radio that Frank had been in a car accident.
And how did you react to this phone call?
It was the end of the world for me and the kids.
But did you have time to grieve?
We didn't really because at this time the twins were still very young and a lot of things were going on and Frank had been the one who was supporting the family entirely. He really had no options and it was a scramble to figure out what was going to happen in the future.
And were you worried that the kids had lost their father?
Yes, definitely. It was horrific and I think the hardest part is that Sarah and Steve are still too young for me to even tell them what happened. They don't know what's going on. They don't know why their dad died.
And so let's talk about your Sarah and Steve, your two young twins. What are your worries about them? What are your worries about growing up without a father?
I think the biggest fear for me is that I've seen Mary and Bill grow up and they're now in their teens and they've grown up to be great kids. And I think a large part of that was because they had their father with them and he could take care of them. That's not a possibility for Sarah and Steve anymore. And I won't be able to be at home as much as I was because I have to find a job and make sure that I'm working to support them.
All right, so you had to find a job, but let's talk about that. But first, can anything ever replace what Frank meant to your family?
No, I don't think so.
So nothing can be as good, but money from the insurance company, what your promise, did you try and collect on that?
Yes, that was one of the first things that I did after I got over like the initial horror and shock. I went to go see Greg Young, who had sold the insurance policy to Frank, and asked him for the money so that I could make sure that I could see our kids.
Because currently you are not working.
Yeah, that's correct. While Frank was alive, he didn't want me to work because he believed that it was best for me to stay at home with the kids and to make sure that I raised them.
And you had talked about working in case Frank was fired, and so you could go to work, or you were going to work maybe when the kids got a little older in school, but currently you are not working.
Yeah, I had suggested to him a couple times that I wanted to work once Sarah and Steve were old enough to go to school so that we could have a little bit more money and meet our bills before you.
But now, all you had, besides your 4 children in the house, what was the only other thing you had?
The only other thing I had to rely on was the insurance policy, which they didn't pay out to us. It's really been the end of the world. We're gonna have to mortgage our house, and there's no way to make ends meet right now.
And so are you worried that your children will maybe not have food on the table without the insurance policy?
Yeah, I don't have a college education, and there's not much that I can do that would make enough money to support 4 young kids.
Are you worried you might not have a shelter over that head?
Yeah, so we're gonna have to mortgage our home because we have other debts. We paid off our house, but there's still other financial services that we use to get short-term loans and to kind of get enough money to get by. And there's no way for me to pay, so no.
And finally, let's talk about Frank. Did he tell you that he would always take care of the family?
Yes, that was the most important thing to him, and that was why he wanted to open the sports bar, because he believed he would be able to make more money so that he could support his kids to send them to college. And for 4 kids going to college, it's a lot of money.
But when he said always, did he only mean financially?
No, he meant that he meant in every way possible. He wanted to be the best father he could be. That was the most important thing to him after we started having our children.
So he wanted to be with his children and watch them grow up.
Yeah.
All right, no further questions. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Klein. Thank you for testifying with us today. Let's just talk quickly about the Valium incident in 2011 when your husband came home after being passed up from us. So, when he came back home, was he drunk?
Yes, he had been drinking right after he got off of work.
Was he just drinking alcohol? Was he drunk at the time when he came back?
He was pretty drunk. He usually did not get drunk. He would drink every so often, but at night he had had a lot to drink.
So, we heard the testimony that he's a big person, more than 6 foot tall, more than 200 pounds.
He's 6'3".
6'3". So it's unusual for him to be drunk.
But yeah, like I said, he usually didn't drink that much, and it would take a lot for him to get drunk.
Did he look upset?
He looked very upset. I had never seen him more upset than that night, ever before, I think.
In your deposition testimony, he said, you testified that when he came in on that day, quote, he said, he would never be able to do any good for me and the kids. Is that correct?
I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was really sad.
So he sounded hopeless.
He was sad.
Was he hopeless? Did it sound to you that he was hopeless?
I guess it's possible. He had a lot to drink, but he wasn't really in his right state of mind at the time.
And he came back home drunk, and then he went to the bedroom, correct?
Yes.
You did not go to the bedroom with him.
No, he had been moping around with me in the living room for a while, kind of just being sad, not trying to comfort him, and eventually he decided that he was going to go to sleep and went up to the bedroom.
So he was upset, he was drunk, and then he went to the bedroom alone,
Yeah.
correct? And later on, when you followed him into the bedroom, he was knocked out
Yeah, he was sort of sprawled on the bed, and there was
because of the Valium, correct?
Yeah.
Did you go to the hospital after that?
I did, yeah.
Did the doctors, after treating him, pumping out his stomach, that's what they did, right?
Yes.
Did they offer to treat Mr. Hyde?
They wanted him to stay at the hospital, I think.
And they wanted to treat his mental condition, right?
I think the word they used were observation. They wanted to just make sure that he was okay.
They wanted to make sure that he was okay because they thought he is a danger to himself, correct?
I don't know if that, I think maybe I think it makes sense that if you had a lot of alcohol and maybe taking some pills that you would need to be watched by a doctor.
So they wanted Mr. Hyde to stay at the hospital,
Yes.
but you did not.
No, Frank can be stubborn sometimes, and he has decided for himself that he wanted to go home.
Did he kindly decline the treatment to the doctors?
No, they were pretty adamant, so he got pretty angry. But
So he was angry and he lashed out at the doctors?
I don't know if he lashed out, but he just wanted to go home and see his kids.
Isn't it true that he said to the doctors, "I'll slug you and I'll sue you"?
I think he might have said something.
So he was angry and he lashed out at the doctors.
He was angry.
Now, you just testified that you were even after the whole incident, even after that he was fired from the job, he had to bail him and had to have the stomach pumped out to save his life, you were not too worried about it, correct?
Well, I was pretty worried about it because I wanted to make sure that he was okay and that the family would still be whole.
But you said he seemed to be doing okay since then.
Yeah, he got better. He was never that bad again, and he started drinking a little bit more, but it wasn't getting drunk every night. He was still coming home and seeing his family.
But at the same time, you recommended him to see Dr. Louis, correct?
Yeah, so I was worried about making sure that he got back to where he was before he had been passed up for the promotion when he would return to
So
the
after the bailing incident, you were still worried about him
Yeah,
because he wasn't back to normal that
Yeah.
he was before the incident.
wasn't as happy as he is.
So he wasn't as happy so he's not the same person that he was before the passing up of the promotion and after, correct?
I think he still had all of his core values. His family was still the most important thing to him, and he absolutely loved us. He loved me and loved our children.
But his condition was that you were still worried about it, correct?
I just wanted to be happier, to make sure that he was doing okay mentally.
About the insurance policy, you did not know that there was an insurance policy that has you as a beneficiary until the 6 months before he died, correct?
He told me sometime in 2015 that he had an insurance policy.
So the insurance policy that you had since 2014, you did not know until mid-2015.
Yeah, he didn't. He hadn't mentioned it to me when he first died, but he told me later on.
After you recommended your husband to see Dr. Louis, you did not know that he refused to take the Prozac, correct?
I'm not sure. I think he sort of didn't talk to me that much about what Dr. Louis had talked to him about.
And since then, you didn't know that Frank did not go to Dr. Louis afterwards to get it treated on a frequent basis, correct?
Well, I knew that. I kept pressuring him that he should go and talk to Dr. Louis more.
But Dr. Louis did testify in his deposition that you called in 2014, and then you didn't know that Frank wasn't coming in.
I guess that's possible. It's been a long time, and it's been a really horrific event for me. My husband died in a car accident.
You just testified that Mr. Hyde had a plan to open a sports bar, correct?
Yeah, he mentioned that his dream was to open a sports bar in Petersburg.
And I guess even for Petersburg, to open a sports bar would take a lot of money to open one, right?
I honestly don't know that much, but I assume he would have to pay something to get a place.
Were you financially stable? Did you have a lot of leftover after months paying all the bills?
Well, we owned our house, and that was the majority of our stuff, but we did have some trouble meeting our bills and making
So
things.
you didn't have the money set aside that you can have a down payment to open a sports bar, correct?
Not that I know of.
So you had to keep saving money from Mr. Hyde's salary to open a sports bar, correct?
Well, Frank never really mentioned the finances to me. He handled most of that.
So you don't know your family's finances.
No,
So he's in charge of the family's finances, you're not.
yes.
No further questions, Tom.
Anything further?
Yes, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Ms. Hyde, to follow up on that last point, now I'm not sure what opposing counsel is getting at. I know you're a woman, but are you incapable of working?
No.
So even though Frank didn't have a job, you could have gotten a job, and you had previously talked about getting a job.
Yeah, I told him a couple times that I wanted to go find a job to help them out and make sure the family had enough.
But with 4 kids and young twins, you would just want to have one parent working and one parent staying at home with the kids.
Sustained?
How do you organize a family?
Well, like I said before, Frank was the breadwinner. He went out and worked every day and tried to make enough money for us to get by. And I stayed home and took care of our kids, especially once the twins were born. They need constant supervision because they're both just a year and a half old and they need help in every way.
And would you have had a problem if your roles were reversed for a period of time?
I think Frank had built up a reputation at Philip Morris where he was a competent employee. And I didn't have that much work experience prior, so I don't know what type of job I would be getting exactly.
But were you capable of getting a job?
Yes,
And were you capable of earning income?
of course.
And would you be willing to take a job and earn money to go towards a sports bar that you would own together with Frank?
Yeah, I would love to have supported his dreams once the twins got a little older in school.
All right, now let's talk a little bit more about that Valium incident. When Frank was at the hospital, he didn't want to stay, but how much were the hospital bills if he would have stayed?
I guess they would have been a lot.
And you were tough meeting your bills each month?
Yeah, we had a hard time and we had to take out some smaller loans from financial services companies to make ends meet every so often.
And so did you have the money to pay for all those hospital bills if you would have stayed?
No, I guess not.
And could you have afforded to miss work for that long of a time?
No, he needed to go to work every day. We needed all the money we could get.
And I understand that after the Valium incident, he was a little bit, he did get better, but he was still depressed. Well, he says he's still depressed.
He was still pretty down and he was trying to look for a way out of Philip Morris and to move on with his life.
And that was 5 years ago.
When he would pass up for the promotion.
And any time during those 5 years when he was depressed, did any night, 365 days a year, did he ever say he was going to kill himself or ever take any other actions that might be indicative of him killing himself? Or any other accident that might possibly be interpreted as a suicide?
No, he never once mentioned to me that he would kill himself. And Frank's not the type of person who would do that. I'm still sure to this day that the Valium incident was just an accident.
And you can't believe he would kill himself.
Frank would never kill himself. He loves his children. He too much.
I think you have further questions.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
And you may be excused. Any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
So, any rebuttal on the defense?
No, Your Honor.
So let me ask the jury. What we have remaining is closing argument, a brief instruction, and then you'll deliberate and reach your verdict. So we're almost at the end. The question I have for you is, would you like to take a 10-minute break, use restrooms and the like, and come back? I see several of you say yes. So let's do this. Let's try to keep it to 10, for your interest, because we'll get done a little earlier. There are restrooms when you walk down this big hall. I believe there's a ladies' room to the right. I think I passed it going up the stairs. There's a men's room right over there when you came up. There's a men's room on the left, not far down the hall. So let's take a 10-minute break. I mean, everybody can take a break. Come back and we'll do it.
So cold. Well, I'm happy I brought a coat.
hard though, it's like such a hard thing to do if you've never, if you've never dealt with like this kind of case before, you know, like.
We're just recording this.
Oh, yeah.